Okay, this may or may not be starting. Who the hell knows? Anyway, how are you supposed to start these things? I don't know. What's up, everybody? Wanted to come on here and do a little demonstration with different cameras. A lot of people think they have to have the fancy gear and what have you, but the truth is, anything that's made in the last 8 to 10 years can produce pretty darn good results. I have a Nikon D40, which was probably my first real digital camera. I had a Casio something or other a long time ago. I think it was probably 1 megapixel. But the D40 was released in like 2005 or 2006, and it was a whopping 6 megapixels. Anyway, I took that out in the desert after I got new batteries for it because I have no idea where the battery charger was at, and the battery I had was dead, so it would not charge. So I got a new battery charger for it, and then I also have a Nikon D800, which was gifted to me. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, Bill Cooper. Appreciate it greatly, and that's really jump-started a lot of my Instagram and a lot of my photography after learning how to use Lightroom and Photoshop. But we use that one, and then also the Nikon D500, which really got me going into photography. Didn't really know that much about cameras back then. I just knew that it took a lot of pictures per second. It's like 10 frames, 9 or 10 frames a second. I thought that was cool, but it really, if I had known a little bit more, what I had intended to use the camera for was mostly landscape and maybe some portrait stuff. I probably wouldn't have, because it's a crop sensor camera, I probably would have opted for the full frame camera, which at the time was probably the D850. Well, it was about $1,000 more, but it certainly was a revolutionary camera. Anyway, the D500 is probably considered one of the best, if not the best, sports and action wildlife cameras, DSLRs anyway. Obviously, the mirrorless cameras have come a long way, and everybody's shooting with those now. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll jump into Lightroom here and just kind of compare the images. We went out in the desert. It was a pretty boring sky, but here's what we have. Give me just a second to set all that up. All right, I'm pretty sure I just talked to the camera for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it wasn't even recording. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to video, apparently. Anyway, I've got 3 cameras here. I've got a Nikon D40. Well, they're all Nikons. A Nikon D40, which is released in 2005. It's a big 6 megapixel camera. And then I have the D800, which is, it's either 36, I think it's 36 megapixels, but it's a full frame camera versus the crop sensor on the D40. And then I also have the D500, which was released in 2015. I do have one other camera, but it's in New Mexico with my son, which is D5100, which was in 2011, but really just kind of a comparison to show if you really need to have high megapixel camera, if you're just starting out, or a new camera. I think that you can get by with a bunch of either used equipment or certainly older equipment and not have to spend as much, especially if it's just going to be for social media or maybe starting out with portraits or something, but definitely landscape stuff. If you're going to be using a tripod, just about all of them would work well for that. Anyway, so here's where I'm at. I'm out here out in near the white tanks, of course. And if I can get the screen to turn around here, we'll be shooting this bad boy, first day with my new tongue. And if you look up there, oh, look, there's a moon, about a 3/4 moon. And then this is where I come out a lot, is the white tanks. And you can see, normally I shoot a little bit farther up, a little bit closer to the building, if you can see that. This Osmo Pocket 3 has a 20mm lens. And then over here, that's how close I am to the road. I joke around about having a 100-yard limit, and this may be 150 yards, but it is what it is. Anyway, this is what we'll be shooting, and let me get all set up, and then I'll record the behind-the-scenes stuff and see how it goes. if they're any good, you'll see them. All right. Not very many clouds, just a couple. Maybe a good sunset underneath that cloud right there. And I'll show you in just a second here. Again, I don't know how to use this dang camera. That cloud may get a little bit of sun under it. We're still probably about a half hour, 30 minutes before actual sunset. So we'll get set up. First up will be the Nikon D40. And hopefully there's no snakes over here. I probably don't even have the right equipment to do this. Like tripod mount or something. But we'll make do, maybe. And now I've got my bag completely trashed and the dirt over here. I'll be okay as long as there's no dang snakes. It's been, we set a record for consecutive days over 100 degrees. I think we're up to 7,412 days in a row. Not really, it's like 78. And the next 10 days, it's projected to be over 100 degrees as well. So we're probably gonna really break some records. The last year was days over 110, and this is just consecutive days over 100. All right. So all of these cameras will have the same, I'll use the same lens. It's a Nikon f-mount lens. It's a it's a 24 to 70 f2.8, which is an outstanding lens. I'll shoot them at, maybe I'll shoot different focal lengths. We'll see how that goes. But regardless, when I show the images, I'll show the exact same images everywhere. And I don't know how to work this camera, of course. How do I get on live view? Apparently I can't. Okay, now we have restarted this, and we already jumped around. This mouse is a little bit goofy. What you see down here are all the images I took, and then I took a few extra ones with the D800 or D500. Which ones were those? I took a few extra ones with D500, and I'll just kind of show you what I did with one of those images at the end, just so you can see what I did with this particular image. So here we have the D800, and you can tell that it's been a long time since I used it, because if you look over here, it said this was captured on December 31st, 2011. Yeah, hadn't used it in a while, and it shows because of the date on it. And that's when the camera was released, was in 2011. So certainly that was not the case, as you'll see. And some reason up here, you'll see that it was shot at 42 millimeter. I'm sorry, sue me, ask for a refund, because it's not a real fair comparison. Then this is a D500. What I did was I actually processed the D40 image first, and then just copied all the settings over as much as possible with Lightroom. Just copy and pasted the settings. So they're pretty similar as far as the way they looked, but you can tell that the dynamic range is a little bit less on the D40. But if you were just shooting landscapes or maybe even portraits, if you had a good lens, that would be plenty. I did, the screen on it does not have like a live view, or I couldn't figure out how to use it, because it's probably been since 2006 or 8 that I have used that. Shout out to Jen Garza and Kimmy Finney for breaking a lens. Anyway, they were playing with the camera, and then I thought it was broke. for a long time, but it was really just the lens that was messed up. It wouldn't activate the shutter or something. I don't know. But anyway, so you'll be able to see that there's a little bit dynamic range difference. But overall, the picture looks pretty much the same. Again, I had the wrong focus on the D800 or the wrong focal length. It's because it says it was at 42 millimeter. But on the D40, and this is that image, you can see that it's a pretty good image. Again, because I could not see a live view on this, this up here is actually a little bit of AI. I cut off the top of it, and if you look at that top compared to this top, that one is straight, and it was in the same. It was on a tripod. I didn't move the tripod. The camera might have been a little bit taller or something, but I cut off the top, and then whoops, I used Photoshop's AI to put the top back on it. And I think there's a couple more clouds up here. Let's see, there's a couple more clouds. But the reality is that this image looks pretty good. If you were just going to put that on social media or something like that, it would be more than good enough, I think. You can definitely tell there's a little bit of banding. You probably can't see it on YouTube or on Instagram, but there's going to be a little bit of banding in here. But if overall, it looks pretty good. And then this is the D800, and it certainly has the D800 and the D500. The D500 was released in 2015, and again, the D800, as you can see over here, was released in 2011. They have a couple of the best sensors, pixels per square inch or whatever, millimeter, whatever it is, of any camera. So the sensors on those two cameras are outstanding, and you definitely see it in the color is just a little bit more refined. And again, I didn't jack these up or anything like that. I just did my basic edits on it. Typically what I would do is I would do a basic edit in Lightroom. Then I would send it over to Aurora HDR sometimes not. And then back into Photoshop for some sharpening and maybe some, a lot of times I'll do some selective sharpening and even some dodging and burning just to make it give it a little more depth. But my basic workflow, I'll just use this D500. I moved the camera around just so I could see these clouds a little bit better. But I have a preset that I named it Signature. But basically what it does, it takes the highlights and shadows, just jack those all up. I add a little bit, well, let me just click on it here and you'll see the difference. That was in camera, and any second, then there it is with the preset and applied. And what it does is it doesn't do, it's as shot as you see here, but take the highlights down, shadows all the way up. Normally I would do some vibrance on it, and then I do some of the camera calibration. You see here that I just push those colors up. And again, I like my colors wet. For you purists out there, sorry, not sorry. But then I might also put in some vibrance in there. What you'll see though, after I use Aurora HDR, it'll get these brown shadows or dark shadows around there, and then I'll take those out in Photoshop with the clone stamp tool. I'll select the subject, and then I'll invert that, and then just copy some of the blue and then lighten it up on that way. But that's basically what I do. I might add some clarity and some texture. And then I do, in that signature thing, I do some masking with the sky in the foreground. And you can see I took more of the highlights out. A lot of times I'll put in some dehaze in the sky too, and what that does, and actually you see some texture and clarity, just makes those clouds a little more defined. But if I put some dehaze in there, you'll see it turn blue. That's overdone just to show you on YouTube or Instagram. But I'll put a little bit, depending on how many clouds there are. If the more clouds there are, or if we got some red in there, it'll really make that pop. And then on the ground or the non-sky, normally what I'll do is I'll move that temperature slider up and just make it warmer, something like that. So that's my basic edit, and we'll do some behind the scenes stuff, or I've already showed you the behind the scenes. This is future Neil from before, I'm actually going to edit the video and put the behind the scenes in before this part. It's magic, folks. Anyway, that's it. That's the workflow that I do. And again, if you just look at this image, which was the D800, this is the D40. You can see it looks a little funky there with the highlights, just the dynamic range. But again, with social media and anything like that, it's going to be perfectly fine. And then this is the D500. Again, all of these had the exact same, any second, there we go. The exact same edit on it as far as the color and exposure. Those are all just copied over. So anyway, let's get back to the before, this, after, whatever. And there you have it, kind of my workflow. And just kind of demonstrate you may or may not need the latest and greatest. If you can afford it, obviously, yeah. But I think you can pick up, I wouldn't recommend a D40 unless that's all you had. You could probably pick up one of those and a nifty 50 lens, probably for $150, $200 for some of the old lenses. A D500, you could probably get somewhere between $500 and $600. Same thing with the D800, maybe a little bit less for the D800. It's a little bit older. Good lens. The lens that I used on that, all three of those cameras, was the F-mount Nikon 24-70 f2.8, which is a professional lens. And definitely more expensive than what you need to start out with. Again, you get a 50 millimeter lens for probably $100, which would be more than enough for most people, or even an aftermarket lens, you probably get it even cheaper. So anyway, thanks for being here and have some fun.